Exercise. I came into the strength and conditioning field, and more importantly, the health betterment field, or wellness field, I like to call it, from the pharmaceutical industry. Having been in the pharmaceutical industry, and at first feeling very, very accomplished and very good about helping citizens, helping humanity maintain their health. After a while, that eroded a bit when I kind of got deeper into the business and saw the underbelly. And I'm certainly not here to say that the pharmaceutical industry is to be reviled, but they're definitely should keep an eye on them. Because the truth of the matter is, the diseases that make the pharmaceutical industry so profitable are diseases that can be prevented to begin with. These companies make money on maintenance drugs, diabetes being a big part of that. So when my wife Michelle and I had the opportunity to shift gears and kind of bail out of the corporate world and do what we wanted to do for love instead of doing for money, I chose to attack the wellness side of things from where I think it can be affected the most, and that is from the exercise perspective. And I will say along with this that diet goes hand in hand with exercise. I won't get into diet here because we have a resident expert sitting right over there. I don't want to, well, I'll just say we're of one mind on the diet aspect of this, so I'll just kind of leave that at that. And when she has her 10 minutes, she can come up here and explain it. So I'm not going to go into the diet side of things. What I would like to go into very, very quick is the public perception of what is health and how the public perceives athleticism as being health. And I can tell you, having worked with athletes, that is not necessarily true. High performance athletes, and let me just kind of explain this graphic over here. As we go through an initial training phase, and I take a person who is untrained and bring them up, train them as their conditioning improves, as their strength improves, as their muscle mass becomes to be more and more, performance tracks perfectly with that up to a point. At a certain point, we can say that a person is about as healthy as they're going to get. Well, then the next question is, well, what is health? The definition of health, the common definition of health is the absence of disease, which is kind of like defining love as the absence of hate. I mean, it's a horrible definition. So we would like to expand that a little bit and say that health is relative to the person. If I have a 93-year-old here, health to her means being able to get up, move around. If she falls, to be able to come right back up and not have a broken hip. And under the hood parameters, again, and I'll leave this for Holly, but all the blood lipid parameters, markers of inflammation, all of these things at a certain point with the training intensity were normalized to where we can say that person is healthy. Now, as we increase the training, as we increase performance, as we bring up, for a bodybuilder, that would be increased muscle mass. For a performance athlete, that would be better times. These measures, what we see is health pretty much stabilizes. The person is not getting any more healthy. Their performance is increasing, no doubt, which for some people is exactly what they're looking for. They're looking to go beyond the health aspects of working out and actually get into the performance enhancement aspects. These would be your high school athletes, your budding collegiate athletes, this type of person. What happens is, when we start moving into the high caliber athletic realm, kind of over there in that C realm, what we see is a noticeable drop in parameters of health. So for instance, an athlete like Lance Armstrong, an athlete like Michael Phelps, high caliber athletes, Usain Bolt, sprinters, pick a professional athlete anywhere. All of these guys are operating in this realm. Now, they either have some type marker for decreased health. Usually that's an inflammation marker, but their health, they've given up health here for better performance. And one thing that many trainers don't realize is that as you push a person past this point, you're going to affect their health negatively. So you have to ask the person that comes in, do you want to be a competitive athlete? We can do that, definitely. I can gear you up. I can turn you into a Ferrari, but just know that you are one step away, one ligament away, one something away from going off the cliff. And you can see this in professional athletics, in Olympic athletics all the time. These guys tune up, and they just can't keep it up for long. Something's going to give out, whether it's biomechanical blowouts or some other health blowout. Something's going to happen, but you cannot stay in this realm and expect to be healthy. You just can't do it. The athletes that do stay in the game for a long period of time realize that their health is being affected by operating at the capacity they're operating at, and they will return right back over here and hang out until it's competition time. Those that aren't smart will just keep right on charging, and it's just a matter of time. It's just like redlining the Ferrari. It's fast while it's going, but it's getting ready to blow up. Something's getting ready to break. So, first of all, the perception that the public has of, let's just use Michael Phelps as an example, as being a healthy athlete, and he may be in the off season, but when he's gearing up to actually train, I can guarantee you, and Holly can probably verify this, if you looked at his blood profile right before he's getting to compete, he's not healthy. If you look at his inflammation markers and things like that, he cannot stay at that level for long. Old world cartographers, when they would draw maps of the known world, at a certain point, when they were out, they didn't know anymore, they would put, there be dragons. Right here, there be dragons. We don't know. We can gear you up, but it's not going to last long, and we know that. But let's kind of backtrack back over here. Now, what does it take for a person to be healthy? And realistically, it doesn't take that much. And if you do, and I'm biased, okay, so if you do it the efficient exercise way with smartly programmed resistance training, your time commitment here is going to be about an hour a week. If you want to increase performance, that time multiplies exponentially. Even to get out here, and I kind of think of myself as being kind of in this realm right here. I kind of push the envelope, and I know myself well enough to where I can just kind of walk up to the edge of the cliff and go, oh, okay, and back off. But that comes from years and years of experience. But the time commitment from here being 1 hour to over here, we're talking 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hours a week. So it increases exponentially if you want to push that envelope. But if you want to stay right there, we're talking an hour a week. It doesn't take that much. It doesn't take that much at all. And this is one thing that many trainers and many training companies fail to realize. They train everyone who comes in the door as if they're over here in the C realm. So, one big thing that we can affect here in that hour, the biggest thing that strength work will do for you is to offset sarcopenia. Sarcopenia is flesh poverty. That's actually what it means. It's muscle loss. Along with muscle loss goes bone loss. People that are worried about osteoporosis, the two go hand in hand. Because the fact of the matter is, if you're lifting, if you're bearing load, if you're pumping the muscle, that also builds the bone. There was a study done on female professional tennis players looking at their radius, a cross-section of their radius on the racket arm, as opposed to their non-weight-bearing arm or functioning arm. This load-bearing cross-section was much, much greater than even in a trained athlete, even the non-load-bearing bone. And the reason they used tennis players for this study was because traditionally tennis players don't lift weights. So they pretty much knew, okay, competitive athlete, lots of force on this arm. Now, the interesting thing is that this non-load-bearing arm looked about the same as an untrained person. So resistance exercise is very, very, very important. Real quick about sarcopenia, and then I'm going to kind of open it up for questions because I usually get a bunch, so I want to save just a little bit of time for that. Sarcopenia, I think everybody in here is over 25. Yeah,
No, I'm not. No, I'm not.
Neither am I. But the effects of sarcopenia can be seen as early as 25. So if you take a 25-year-old and track them from 25 to 50, the muscle loss over that time is a ½ pound a year, from 25 to 50. Okay, that's 12.5 pounds by the time you hit 50. From 50 to 70, that goes up to a pound a year. So by the time you're 70 years old, you have lost, on average, 32.5 pounds of muscle fiber. And that's a lot. My cousin barbecues quite a bit. I can tell you, a 32.5 pound brisket is big. That's a lot of flesh that you've lost. The problem with that, of course, not only have you lost strength, but you've also lost the ability to withstand falls. This is why older people, when they fall, it's so traumatic. Broken hip, they don't have anything to cushion them. They don't have any shock absorber. The other thing is, muscle is metabolic currency. Every pound of muscle that you have burns about 50 calories per day at rest. That's at rest. So by the time you hit 70, now you're in a 1,500 calorie a day deficit. You probably haven't changed your eating patterns by then, so that 1,500 calories has to go somewhere. Now, I'm not saying that there's a lot more going on than just a bomb. Anyway, there's a lot more. The metabolic process is much more complicated than just saying a calorie in equals a calorie out. But still, 32 pounds of flesh loss during that time is just, I mean, it just blows you up. Then that leads into obesity. So now the definition of obesity is not just obesity, it's sarcopenic obesity, because now the medical industry realizes that it's a combination of muscle loss, fat gain issue. Back to the chart here, and again, the good news about this is that can be reversed. Sarcopenia can be reversed. There's a chart that looks, or a graph that looks something like this. An untrained person, if we look at that and and track their muscle loss over time, of course it would look something like this. A trained person, a lifelong trained person, their muscle loss comes out looking like that. They're still going to lose some as you get older. This graph isn't drawn real good, but if you were to come over here, a person at 70 years old who has trained lifelong will have the same muscle amount that an untrained 20-year-old will have. That's big. That's huge. It is huge. The good news is that even if someone picks up here, we can bend that curve, and you might not end up at the same place, but we can bend it up quite a bit. So anytime is a good time to start. Ideally, you would start in youth and continue that forward. But we can do a lot even with elderly people that come in for the first time. We can turn around a lot. And as soon as you see them start to put on muscle mass, you'll see these other parameters of health just come right on up. And it's simple, and it happens every time. And now, before I get careening off the rails, does anybody have any questions? Yes?
Can you talk a little bit about the benefits of water aerobics and water exercising? Is
Sure.
it as good as actually doing
Well,
weightlifting and stuff?
Okay, so the problem is it's not load-bearing. And you have to have load-bearing resistance exercise to affect sarcopenia. To positively affect, or how you want to look at it, to negate sarcopenia, to actually put on muscle. It's not that it's a bad choice of exercise if done in addition to strength training. But the strength training component.
Things that are, they go
The
with
paddles, yeah. Yeah, so it
those-
is, it does, no, it just nothing can take the place of the resistance training. Now, that's a great addition, and I always tell people, give me an hour doing some heavy-duty resistance training. The other stuff that you do is fantastic. And I train yoga instructors too, and they do yoga in addition to their strength training.
That was my question.
Which is
Yoga
fantastic.
is not resistance.
No, no. And we kind of cut things as saying heavy, intense resistance training and activity. So I do a lot of other things on top of resistance training, but it's not heavy resistance. I mean, it's in addition to. But the real moneymaker is the resistance training. That's what gets you here. Other stuff can kind of carry you up and, you know, get you in this zone, that kind of stuff, but the bang for the buck is right here.
So you're saying
That's
an
all.
hour a week of resistance, you don't have to be doing aerobic as well, or do you recommend?
No, you don't, actually.
Okay.
Because what happens is your metabolism, for our purposes here, your metabolism is so ramped up from doing intense resistance training that carries you forward. And actually your aerobic system is working while you're not working out. Michelle just worked out today right before we came here, and if we were to put a pulse monitor on her pulse would be much more elevated, her breathing would be much more elevated even now, and even going into tonight. So her aerobic system is actually working. And if you look at many strength athletes who do it right, they don't do much aerobic stuff, they don't need to, but they can still perform aerobically very well.
So what if someone does 15 minutes of resistance training 4 times a week? Is that the same
Yes.
trade-off?
Yep.
I mean, is it a minute-for-minute trade-off?
Yeah. Well, then you get back to what is resistance training.
Okay.
Okay, so I can push my car back and forth in the parking lot here. That's resistance. It's not very efficient, but it's resistance training, and it is. It's the same. It produces the same metabolic response. Now, what we have, and when I say, you know, an hour, and I'm even kind of shooting high here. It's really not even that long. But I have access to machines primarily that I can be very, very efficient and pinpointed, and we can get a lot done in a short period of time. But yes, to answer your question, you can push a car back and forth in the parking lot and get the same effect if you had the time to do it in the one. But yeah, that's resistance training is resistance training, and then it just becomes how efficient can you be and how smart can you be programming it. And efficient and smart together, now you start whittling away on the time. But yes, to answer your question, 15 minutes 4 times a week would be, which is probably
You
more.
need your 30-minute push where you're killing people. Are there any breaks at all in there?
Yeah.
Or is it
So that gets into the other more metabolic aspect of it. But yes, to answer your question, I go very intense, and then I back off for maybe 30 seconds, and then we go at 10 intense. So your heart rate is constantly up, bam, up, you know, and doing that. Which again is more efficient than bringing you up and keeping you straight line.
John, there aren't breaks, but you can sneak sitting down for a second while he sets up the next one.
Until I see you sitting down, they tell you to stand back up.
Take it easy.
I'm just crawling for
Crawl.
Oh, it's not all that bad. Anybody else?
I'm barely walking.
Like, I was a little curious about like, the correlation between physical health and mental health. Like, I know
Sure.
sometimes I'm like, wake up feeling a little ho-hum, like go for a jog, and I feel great.
Oh, yeah.
But like, I don't know anything more. Is there like some?
Sure,
I'm
yeah,
there's
in
a million
fact-
studies, but can you talk about that?
Absolutely, it does elevate mood, and you need to go hit the gym, is what you need. Yeah, but actually, there have been studies done on school children who, okay, if you schedule a PE class prior to them taking a standardized test, they always do better. Why? The neuropeptides are elevated. So there is and there's a big push now to bring PE back into the classes because they realize that if these kids just come from home and you're kind of locked in a room all day, you just kind of so both your emotions go downhill and your I don't want to say intelligence, but your ability to perform in a mental capacity also goes right down with it. And you let these kids out and play and do their thing, they come back and yeah, their test scores go up. And I think there was one school in Chicago, they did this as a test, and they studied the kids, doing no difference in the kids before that, before the schools. One school did this and their test scores kind of went boom. I mean, not just a little bit either, not just barely statistical significance. I mean, it's immense, big boost. But yeah, to answer your question, yeah, there's a correlation there. And do we know exactly what it is? There's a lot we don't know. We know, yes, it does. Exactly how? You know, that's a little shaky. Anybody else? All right, so y'all come see me and defeat that sarcopenia. That way we can keep you all off of pharmaceuticals. Holly and I will keep you off of pharmaceuticals. Okay, thanks y'all.